Hey guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Watches TV, where I watch all the television shows, and then I come over here and I react to them. I watch all the reality shows, the Housewives, the Sister Wives, the Traitors. I watch everything. I also watch all true crime shows, and I come over here and I react to them. All of the documentaries, the documentary series. I watch any true crime that you guys send me or anything that I have found, and then I come over here and I react to that. I love true crime. I also cover all of the trending shows on Netflix and Apple and Prime and Peacock and everything else. I'm currently watching season 1 of the UK trade. Well, I have a lot of shows that I'm watching, but I'm currently binging season 1 of the UK Traitors. My husband and I are watching season 2 of the UK Traitors because he's already watched season 1. And last night, I just finished season 3 of The Head. So I will be doing that recap over here and reaction in the next couple days. And of course, I also do Sister Wives coverage. And today, I'm going to talk a little bit about true crime. And no, the true crime that I'm talking about today, I am not referencing the Brown family and Sister Wives. Today, I want to talk about a true crime series that I found. I think it was less than a year ago that I found it, and it is called Murder Under the Friday Night Lights. Okay, so it's really interesting how I found this series. And the third season, or the fourth season, I believe, just came out. Yeah, it's on the fourth season. It just came out. There's 2 episodes out already. They release an episode a week. Each season has, hold on, let me see how many episodes it has. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So each season has 8 episodes. There's only 2 episodes out of season 3. Both episodes are fantastic so far. So let me tell you how I found out about this series, okay? I am not someone that loves to watch the true crime shows. Well, I didn't used to, okay? I don't love the true crime shows where each episode is completely different. I also don't love the true crime podcasts where each episode is completely different. A few of them I've listened to through the years, like My Favorite Murder and things like that, but mostly that was because I love the hosts of the show. But I like a documentary series that, like, my favorite is like when it's like Making of a Murderer, like when it's like 6 parts, or The Keepers or something like that, or The Staircase, 6 parts of a documentary series, and you're like in the weeds, and it's typically a story that I don't know a lot about. I love like the true crime stories that take place in the Midwest to just normal people, and you don't really know a lot about the story. Like, those are the true crime stories I love the most, that I watch at like 2 to 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm scared out of my wits going into the kitchen for another cup of coffee. Those are the kind of shows that I love, right? A couple years ago, I was listening to a podcast, and the podcast was called Tom Brown's Body. And I don't even know like who sent it to me, but at that time I was talking in my vlog about how I love true crime podcasts, but I don't like true crime podcasts where each episode is a different story. I like when it's an entire season is dedicated to one story. And somebody recommended to me this podcast called Tom Brown's Body. In fact, it's interesting because I was just listening to, I brought it up the other night in my vlog. I was talking about it. I was listening to, I have it right here. I was listening to the theme song by the Avett Brothers called No Hard Feelings. And it's a theme song from that podcast. The podcast is about, I think it takes place in, I believe, like Texas, Oklahoma, I don't remember. But it's about this kid, I think he was a senior in high school, Tom Brown, that went missing, and then they ended up finding his body. And the whole documentary series is about like who did it, police corruption in the town, and things like that. So I listened to the whole season of it, the whole first season of it. I think they've come out and done some updates. I haven't listened to those. But at that time, I was like really into this podcast, and I was talking about it on my vlogs. For those of you that do not know, I have a daily vlog. I vlog every single day for like an hour to like an hour and 45 minutes every single day. I like sit on my front porch, or I sit in front of my computer, and I just talk about what shows I'm watching, what I did that day, stories in my life, memories that I've had, talk about my recovery, grief, things like that. I talk about all kinds of things. So on my vlog, I was just talking about that podcast. And, you know, there are a lot of people that watch every single vlog that I put out, and they remember the things I talk about. And so it was like a year ago, somebody said, Peter, I remember you talking about that podcast, Tom Brown's Body, and there is actually a documentary on it, on this documentary series called Murder Under the Friday Night Lights on Max. And so I was like, what are they talking about? So I went in and I looked up on HBO Max, It's on season 1 and it's episode 2, and it's called Where is Tom Brown? And the synopsis for it says, conspiracy theories rock a small Texas town after a beloved high school football player mysteriously vanishes. Baffling clues and community pressure pit the local sheriff against a brash private investigator until some very unusual suspects emerge. So I went in, and I believe I watched this first before I watched any of the, I think at that point, like, I think all 3 seasons, maybe 2 seasons were out, and the 3rd season was just, like, coming out at that point. So I guess it would have been about a year ago. I think the 3rd season was just ending when I started watching it. So I went in and I watched that episode, and I thought it was fantastically done. It incorporated everything from the podcast. I don't believe it referenced the podcast, but it talked about all the details that the podcast talked about. It was very, very conclusive. It was scary. I love true crime that gets me scared. And, I mean, it interviewed a lot of people. It was just really, really well done. And I immediately was like, oh my God, like, I love this, like, how they did it. People recommend a true crime series to me all the time, and it really, like, the only other one that I really, really like is called Murder in the Heartland, and it's like 45-minute episodes, and they're, murder cases, true crime cases that took place in the Midwest and the Bible Belt America, cases that you've really never heard of before. What's interesting about some of these cases on Murder Under the Friday Night Lights is that some of them are pretty big cases that, like, I mean, Tom Brown had an entire podcast just dedicated to his story. It's kind of interesting when I watch them that I haven't heard more about the stories, because some of them are actually pretty big. So I binge watched this series, and I absolutely loved it. So let me go in here and tell you that what the whole series is about. Murder Under the Friday Night Lights, a new episode comes out every Friday, I believe, and it says the true crime series explores shocking murders that shatter the dream world of high school football. So whenever I tell friends of mine about this, and I was just telling my husband about it the other night, they're always like, you're interested in it, and it's about high school football? Well, it is and it isn't, okay? And for those of you that do not know, like, I am not a sports person whatsoever. I don't watch any sports, which is kind of interesting because I grew up with 2 parents that were, like, obsessed with sports. Like, my dad's a huge NFL person and tennis person and hockey and all that kind of stuff. My mom was college basketball, college football all the way. And being that, like, my mom, if you ever watch the movie Hoosiers, like, my mom was at the original game, the state game back in the day. She went to Broad Ripple High School, and the final game took place at Hinkle Fieldhouse, which is on Butler's campus, and so that was, like, 5 minutes from where my mom lived. So my mom, like, I grew up, I can remember my mom, like, watching college basketball. College basketball in Indiana is huge. I can remember my mom watching college basketball and just, like, rooting and shouting, and the college football she loved. Her and her friends would go down to IU for college football games and things like that in Indiana University. So I grew up around all that, but I just never loved it. I played, when I was growing up, I played tennis, I played soccer, I think 1 season, hockey, some other things, but I was really never that much into sports, and I don't watch any of it, and most of it I don't get. But I am very, very fascinated in the world of sports and movies and documentaries about sports. Like, I love Hoop Dreams, the documentary. It's probably one of my favorite documentaries. If you've never seen it, it's fantastic. I love, like, The Blind Side. I love Rudy. I love Hoosiers. I love, like, football and basketball movies. And there's just something about it. I used to watch on MTV back in the day, 2-A-Days, that reality show. Even though I'm not, like, interested in sports, I'm interested in the world surrounding sports. So I didn't really know what to expect from this documentary series when I started watching it. I did know about Tom Brown, but I didn't know the rest of it. So when you go in, it's interesting because there's cases all the way from the 70s all the way to, like, 2 years ago. I mean, it's back and forth. And some of it are about people that played football in high school and they've graduated. A couple of them are about people that play for, like, NFL teams now that were murdered and things like that. It's very, very interesting. A lot of them are about cheerleaders. They're not just about football players. Some of them are about serial killers of cheerleaders. Some of them are about, like, standalone murders that happened. They're very, very, very well done. And there's, like, I would say at least 5 or 6, sometimes 10 people, from students that went to school, former football players, cheerleaders, parents, friends, siblings, private investigators, police officers, coaches, principals, are all interviewed in this. So even if you don't have any interest in sports, it's probably one of the most well-done true crime shows that I have ever watched in my entire life. And as somebody that does not like series, the fact that I can get behind it should tell you a lot. I mean, they're very well done. There's not any that I'm disappointed in. So this season, I wanted to get in here and just tell you the two, because I remember I remember all of them. If I go through here, I could tell you which each one is about. But the first two that are out so far are, the first one is called Guilt Will Get You, and the second one is called A Cheerleader's Reject. And the first one is from 1976, and it says in here, in 1976, the search for... hold on a second. The search for two missing high school football coaches ends with a shocking twist. And so when you go in, it gives you a further synopsis. To say that Paul Rieger and Jerry Bailey are close friends would be an understatement. When the two football coaches mysteriously disappear, a small Oklahoma town's racial tensions emerge alongside the high stakes of high school football. So what it's about is that this day after the football season has ended in 1976, the football coach who was drafted because he had taken another team. See, this is where I get real interested in all this stuff. He was drafted. I'm not going to tell you the whole thing. I'm not going to ruin it for you. But he was drafted to be the football player or football team. Not drafted like in a draft, but like they, wanted him to be their football team coach because he had taken another team to the state championships and won. So they bring him on as a football coach. Well, his football team sucks. And so like 5 seasons, they're like not doing any good. So he resigns, but there's like questions that maybe he's getting pushed out. He has this assistant coach, and he's white, and he has an assistant coach that's black. And so there's a lot of speculation about who's going to be the next coach because it's the season's over and he said he's leaving. He and his assistant coach are like best friends. Their families do things together. Their kids stayed over at each other's houses. This is a town that has been built on a lot of racial tension. They talk in there about the history. This is one of the things I love about the show is that they go in and they talk about the history of like this small town. I think it's called Skalupa or something like that, Oklahoma. They talk about racial tensions from the 60s all the way through 1976. And that the team, like even like having this like black assistant coach from the football team still like is dividing the team. And that when they come on, there's like half black players, half white players. And this like white coach, Bailey, he like brings in a lot of black players and like the white players are kind of resistant to it. And so it even talks about like how he merges the team together because of their teammates and stuff like that. It's very interesting, like the whole like sociology behind like this football team and things like that. Well, one day the two football coaches, they're also teachers at the school. They go missing and nobody knows where they are. So the case is about, it's literally told in real time, like from students' points of view that are now like my age. They would be much older than me because I wasn't a senior in 1976. I was born in 1972. So they're like 15 years, 20 years older than me. But anyway, it tells like the day from their point of view. Some of them are now like coaches and principals and stuff like that. And teachers, but it tells the case in real time of like 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock, and then like them figuring out what happened. It is so good. I was so scared, you guys, watching this. It was so good. So that's the first one. I don't want to tell you any more about what happens with that. The second one that just came out last week is called A Cheerleader's Reject. A cheerleader's murder on New Year's divides a small town after police catch her killer. On New Year's Eve, former cheerleader Valerie Zavala goes to a party with high school football players and cheerleaders. She turns up murdered the next morning. Investigators collect home video from the party to find clues to identify her killer. So this is really, really interesting. And this is where they bring in like a lot of like sociological issues into the show and things like that, because this is a town that the high school is like, it's like a heavily Latino high school. And so they go in and they talk about this group of friends, okay, that live in this town. I think it's Fillmore, California. They even go in and talk about how it's a highly agricultural area and that it's like the #1 agricultural city in the country or something like that. This teacher talks about it in there at one point, and that they're like citrus as far as like oranges and lemons like come mostly from Fillmore, California. And so they talk about like that plays into, there's a history of families in this town. There's like the families go back generations and generations and generations of people that worked in this agricultural area. And so as a result, all of these kids are really, really close friends. Now they've graduated and they've all gone off to like college or working and things like that. But every year they get together for this New Year's party. So this is like, I think the first year after I think it's the first year after they've left high school. And it's all the football players and cheerleaders getting together at this house party for New Year's Eve. And they're talking about how like they're drinking. Somebody's recording the whole thing. One of her friends is taking pictures and stuff like that. And then she leaves because one of her friends gets sick. So she takes her friend home, and as they're leaving, this guy says, "Can you give me a ride home?" And I think at that point, he is a senior in high school. He was like a sophomore when they were in high school. Maybe it's been 2 years out of high school. And so he's like this nice guy, like he's best friends with like her sister. And so this Valerie's sister, who's interviewed through the whole thing. And I mean, this has been 24 years since this has happened. And they're still very upset, obviously. And the other thing I like about this is that each of the cases are closed. So that you find out at the end of each case what has happened with the cases. So it goes on and it talks about like that night. And then the next day they find her body in a drainage ditch. This teenager that's out for a walk sees her body, thinks it's an animal, and finds her body in a drainage ditch. So then it's this investigation. And they like have two suspects and they're not really sure who it is because she said she was going to go see this old boyfriend of hers. And then it's like between him and like this nice kid. And so it's like they don't really know. They can't believe anybody's story. And it's like DNA testing and all this kind of stuff. But DNA testing won't come back for a while. It's so well done and it's so heartfelt. This is probably one of the best true crime documentary series I've ever seen. I'm telling you right now, I kind of wanted to steer away from it because I was like, it's all centered around sports. Will I really be that interested in it? But I am like highly interested in it. In fact, I wish they would just release the whole season all at once because waiting each episode for a season is just like a lot for me. And I'm somebody that takes in a lot of true crime. And I'm telling you right now, there is not an episode that I have not liked. There's been some episodes that I'm less interested in because it's just like, it doesn't like, they're like quicker cases. Some of the cases are pretty quick. They come in and it's just like, it'll be like a short investigation. The rest of it is talking about like the prosecution and then the court case and things like that. But the majority of them are going in. And most of the towns are pretty... I mean, there's some that are in California and things like that that are bigger towns. One of them takes place in Colorado. I think that's the one with the NFL player that's like home for New Year's and something like that. But there's always a sociological aspect to all of it. And I've learned a lot by watching the show as well. Not just about true crime, but just I've learned a lot about the world. So I think it's a great show. I would highly recommend it. Murder Under the Friday Night Lights. It's my go-to recommend if you like true crime series, not just true crime documentaries that are one story. So anyway, I want to talk about that because I just started watching season 4. And if you guys want to watch with me, you can catch up. There's 3 seasons. It's easy to binge. So let me know if you watch in the comment section below. I'll take any recommendations for true crime. Going into February, I've got like 10 shows I'm excited to watch. And I will be doing a lot of true crime coverage over here. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.